Bonjour à tous. My presentation relates to a multidisciplinary, multi-partner project whose objectives were to characterize the shallow bedrock aquifer and to assess environmental cumulative effects in particular on water resources and vegetation due to the department we work for in an industrial area of West Central Alberta. So I'll skip the abstract for the presentation. This project involved many people without whom this project would not have been possible. It included 6 grad students. The study area was located in West Central Alberta, just southwest of the town of Fox Creek. It extended over about 700 square kilometers. This industrial area is mainly forested and unpopulated, so the only water wells belong to oil and gas operators. Fox Creek was selected for this project because it had been one of the most active regions for oil and gas production in Canada over the last 50 years. Only in this limited study area, there are over 800 oil and gas wells and about 2,300 kilometers of seismic lines. The regional bedrock aquifer is located at the northern edge of the Pascapoo Formation, shown in yellow here, which is the most important groundwater supply in the province. It is a non-marine fluvial unit that corresponds to a complex succession of interbedded mudstone and siltstone with sandstone channels that is known to contain some coal seams. The Fox Creek project had 3 objectives that are related to the 3 sources of funding. First, to characterize the regional shallow aquifer to better understand the hydrodynamics. Second, to investigate the vulnerability of water resources to potential contamination from industrial activities carried out at the surface and at depth, thus including the study of the intermediate zone integrity. And the last objective was to assess environmental cumulative effects. This project comprised several thematic studies or project components which fed on geological modeling and coupled surface water, groundwater modeling that integrated the knowledge gained from existing data and fieldwork to study hydrodynamics. The estimation of water budgets in undisturbed and disturbed areas corresponding here to seismic lines to better understand the hydrological cycle over the course of a year. Geomechanical modeling to study the potential impacts of hydraulic fracturing on the intermediate zone integrity. A study of the evolution of the landscape over time using satellite imagery and old air photos. A geochemical study to better understand the hydrodynamics and, of course, also to help determine if water resources have been affected by industrial activities. On vegetation recovery following oil and gas activities. There was also a study that combined lab testing and numerical modeling to investigate the fate of chemicals in the event of a surface spill that used, among others, samples from the Fox Creek project. A study on the presence and origin of some poorly consolidated sandstone intervals and their impact on groundwater flow. And finally, there was a general study on cumulative effects that aimed to identify existing challenges and barriers that people face when evaluating cumulative effects and to make recommendations for trying to improve the current cumulative effect assessment process in Canada. As one of the goals of the Fox Creek project was to study potential impacts of oil and gas development on water resources, achieving a fine understanding of groundwater flow dynamics within and possibly beyond the small study area was essential in establishing a framework to optimize the search for contaminants. Thus, this guided the planning of our fieldwork. As part of this project, 12 monitoring wells were drilled, 9 using a hammer drill rig and 3 were core drill. All these wells were sampled a few times, as well as 13 water wells from oil and gas operators. Surface water was also sampled. For the master's thesis on hydrological cycle, various equipment and sensors were installed and monitored. And for the master's thesis on the vegetation recovery, characterization of vegetation, including measurements and sampling, was carried out on several reclaimed well pads. I will now very briefly present some of the results, mainly those with which I'm more comfortable or familiar with as a hydrogeologist. The study of the evolution of landscape over time has shown that the reduction of forests in red here is quite significant, about 35%. Given that the master's thesis on the hydrological cycle has shown that using numerical simulations, there can be components in disturbed and undisturbed areas, notably a reduction of recharge in disturbed areas, we can conclude that the loss of forest has an impact on water resources apportionment. Only 3 wells were core drilled as part of this project, but they very well illustrated the great heterogeneity of the Paskipu Formation and its highly variable degree of consolidation. Some sandstone samples located at different depths and in between very well consolidated intervals showed little or no consolidation, as you can see on the photos. Based on thin sections and isotope geochemistry, it was possible to identify various processes that over geological time explain the presence of these peculiar intervals that provide preferential flow paths and large yields. In contrast, some sandstone samples show using core plots very low porosity and high density, while they showed very high resistivity, velocity, and density using local geophysical logs. These beds correspond to tight calcite cemented sandstone that represent practically impermeable, partially controlled the lateral flow of groundwater, along with the poorly consolidated sandstone intervals, and of course the fracture network mainly composed of bedding planes. General geochemistry and dating helped determine that the Paskipu Formation in this study area can be divided in 2 parts. An upstream part where the water is young, it contains tritium and it is of the calcium bicarbonate type, which was inferred to be unconfined. And a middle and downstream part where the water is older and it has a different water type. It contains no tritium. It has a corrected radiocarbon age that is generally greater than 5,000 years, and it is of the sodium bicarbonate type, which was inferred to be confined. Very few wells contain methane, all of microbial origin. So upstream wells generally located where superficial sediments are sandier, so in the unconfined aquifer, are those most likely to be contaminated by surface activities related to industrial activities. Middle and downstream wells, so in the confined aquifer, are not really likely to be contaminated by the surface, but potentially by upward fluid migration. So as to be able to detect a possible contamination, wells at different locations across the study area and at different depths were sampled, and water was analyzed for a variety of elements and isotopes. And the results show no impact on water resources, either surface water or groundwater, so that's great news. So water type and age in the confined aquifer and the presence of unconsolidated sandstone intervals and the fact that high yields are available, while vertical recharge was estimated to be really low, all suggest that a significant contribution of water comes from outside the watershed, likely from the Rocky Mountains foothills. Finally, the general study on cumulative effects based on focus groups and interviews led to the development of 10 recommendations. Most of them are addressed to or involve both levels of governments who will have to be prepared or willing to provide considerable funding and possibly make legislative changes to improve the assessment of cumulative effects. Thank you. If you have any questions, these are my contact details.